Hi again then guys, and welcome to a type of review video which we don't really do that often on the channel, and to be honest it's a good thing that we don't have to do this type of review that often, because it would be a very unfortunate scenario that causes this kind of review, and that is a review where we don't just talk about one car but actually more than one. And of course you might think, well surely we do that a lot, it's called Rivals. But no, this is a bit different, because in GT6, for instance, I did a 3-car review for the Fiat 500s, in particular the non-premiums. And the reason why I occasionally do that is basically because the cars are different enough to warrant featuring them all, or in this case, them both. But the differences are not big enough or interesting enough to warrant a full-blown Rivals match. So the result is we get this kind of hybrid between a Rivals match and a review. Now, on this occasion, just like with the kart video yesterday, it's something a bit different. And the reason why we're doing this review is because, of course, the Subaru, the BRZ, was added as part of 1.19. And I left the two least interesting cars for the end, as far as reviewing them in the list. And of course the other example is going to be a similar scenario, and that is the Clio, which is unfortunate as well because it's even more similar to the existing one, whereas at least with this one you can kind of justify it, because people who want to represent Subaru instead of Toyota can still essentially have the same car. So I would say that's actually more warranted and more justifiable than the Renault, which is literally same car, same company, barely any difference. But we'll get to that in due time. Now, as far as these cars go, they are actually different, and that might surprise you, but the differences aren't necessarily all that big. There are three in particular. One is obvious, and that is that they look different. In particular, the front bumper arrangement with the intake, the grille. I personally like the look of the Subaru more, but also from a marketing point of view, I actually like the fact that it's a Subaru. I mean, technically it's not, but you know what I mean. And I think the main reason why is because even though I prefer Toyota as a brand to Subaru, I just think it's cooler for Subaru to have a car like this. Because basically, in the case of Toyota, small coupes or small sports cars, that's nothing new for them. They've had the MR2, the Celica, the AE86, this one, the 86, even their offshoot brand, which is the Trio, or makes the trio of these, the Scion FRS, which incidentally I would not be at all surprised if they also added to the game in a future update. But they've done that before. It's nothing really that new or radical. I mean, it's a spiritual successor, even in name, to the A86 Truno, the Levin. But the Subaru, on the other hand, is a bit more special, because Subaru doesn't do that often. I mean, what's the last time Subaru had a sports coupe? The SVX in the late 80s? And of course we took a look at that car in Gran Turismo 2 a little while back. Interesting car, reminds me a little bit of a Saab in a weird kind of way, crossed with an Aston Martin Zagato with those weird little side windows. It's an interesting car though. This one kind of allows Subaru to play in that kind of market. Now as far as the spec goes, they actually are different, but not in terms of performance, because the second difference between the two, apart from just the visual appearance, is the price, because the engine, the power, the torque, the weight, the horsepower per tonne are all the same. Even the tuning potential, for those who are wondering, is, yes indeed, exactly the same on both cars. They both have just under 200 horsepower, just over 150 pound-feet of torque. They weigh a little bit more than around 2008 WRC car, which is in other words 1230 kilos. The horsepower per tonne is just over 160, which is decent enough for its power and weight. Of course they're both N200, but where they change is that price, and it's actually not just a couple of credits. The Subaru is 30,000, the Toyota is 29,000, or technically 29,052, so it's actually almost a grand cheaper, which is kind of weird and very arbitrary that that car would be, for no real good reason, just cheaper for the sake of it. But whatever, that's what they chose to do in the game. I personally still prefer the Subaru, but mostly for the looks. Now the third and final difference is one that you can notice in this video, and that is when I transition the cockpit cam from the Toyota, which is the cockpit that you can see first, to the Subaru, which the video transitions into, you'll notice, or maybe you won't notice, the single most important difference, and that is not the badge on the steering wheel, but that the tacho in the center, the speedo/tacho, changes from white in the Toyota to black in the Subaru. Pretty huge difference, I know, and it makes a world of difference to all of us. Well, maybe not, but that's the third difference. Apart from that, there's not much really between the cars. They look different, they're priced differently, and they have a slightly different speedo on the HUD. But those differences are pretty negligible for most of us. Who really cares? So it's more a case of which brand you want to support rather than which car is specifically better. Now, I don't know if this is a psychosomatic thing, and I would actually be very interested in getting you guys' opinion of this down below, but I actually do think that they feel a little bit different. I actually feel that the Subaru is a little bit heavier. Now, maybe that's just me. It probably is just me. Maybe it's, as I said, a psychosomatic thing, but it did actually feel slightly different. Now, any differences between them are pretty negligible overall. They're such similar cars. So what are both of them like if you do choose to buy one? Well, the best thing going for either of these cars is definitely how fun they are. They are so drift happy, they're so user friendly, and again that comes directly from the AE86 DNA. It's a legendary car. Initial D, of course, was a lot to do with that. But even just in general, it's a great drift car back in the day, and this is certainly a worthy successor to it in that regard. Now, in real life, it has very much the Mazda MX-5 kind of appeal, where it's this performance car, which is good looking, it's thumpy, it's funky, but it's also much more affordable than something like a Porsche Boxster, for instance, or a Tesla Roadster, which is a similar kind of size, but not exactly an affordable alternative. So overall, I would say that these cars are a really good entry point, especially for beginners, into the world of sports cars. That's a fairly obvious thing to say, and the Mazda MX-5 is also a great example, and if I recall, a slightly cheaper one, I think. But overall, I would say that both the Subaru and the Toyota have better top-end potential. Not top-speed potential, but top-end tuning potential than the Mazda has. The Mazda is almost a little bit too playful, whereas these can actually be turned into decent track cars. And there are some track variations of the Toyota in particular in the game. Not so with the Subaru, at least not for the moment, but overall either of them are pretty much as good as each other overall, so it's just a case of choosing which one you like more. But that's it for this pick overall. Of course, I'll see you guys next time, and for now, as always, thanks for watching.